Hey everyone, this is Cody.
And Sean?
This is a place to hear about the paranormal, the supernatural, and everything in between. Hey, what's up, guys? It's the New Reality here. We have a special edition for you today. We're doing a Saturday podcast. Sean, what do you think about that?
Giggity, giggity, giggity. All right.
It's the weekend. That's always great, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Sean, I wanted to ask you, what do you think is the scariest thing in the paranormal field? What do you think could happen?
Possession is definitely a scary thing, which is amazing because that's what we're talking about today.
Well, and exactly, that's what we're talking about. So, guys, I have two very special guests here. They're kind of near and dear to my heart. They're my cousins. The first one I'm going to bring up is Melissa. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi guys, I'm Melissa.
And we have her sister here, Autumn.
Hi everyone, I'm Autumn.
You know what I like about all this is I know these two very well too because I used to have a meditation group and they both were members of that, and I also meditated with their dad, which is Tim.
Yeah, I was actually involved in that too, and
Yeah.
it was kind of a close-knit circle, and we had fun doing meditations and whatnot, and we kind of just grew from there.
That's kind of metaphysical and paranormal in itself, really.
Absolutely. So, So, Melissa, we're going to bring you in here in a second. I was 16 at the time when this all happened, when this all transpired. We were going to college together and whatnot, and I seen you do some pretty weird shit. So,
Did your head spin at all?
so I don't really remember too much. Again, I was a little younger, so I do. I'm very excited to hear this over again. I know our fans are, and definitely talking about a possession is a super awesome thing. Or
This
not
is great,
awesome,
great story.
Yeah.
Really, and the beautiful thing is everybody's fine, and she was able to clear it, and then here she is today to tell her awesome story.
Absolutely. So go ahead, take it away.
Well, interesting enough that you guys kind of brought up the meditation group because this is what got me into the paranormal, this crazy experience. So like Cody was saying, we were all going to college, doing Spanish that night. And
No habla español.
nope.
Sorry.
It's the burritos and nachos, really. So in this experience, while we were heading over to the college, we were local, and I felt kind of like I was sucker punched in the stomach. Out of nowhere, I was in the passenger seat. Nothing hit me. We didn't hit anything. It just, I doubled over. And,
Did you feel like you had to throw up or anything like that?
not in the moment. It was just, it kind of like took my breath away and just made me feel like, dang, what just happened? What just hit me? And so, of course, my sister was like, hey, what's going on? And I'm like, I don't know. I felt like I just got hit in the stomach. And the next thing I know, my body went really, really hot. And then as we continued driving, it went like ice cold.
Can I ask Autumn something? So, were you witnessing all of this when that happened?
Yeah, she was in the front passenger seat, but I was actually driving. Cody here was actually behind her in the back seat of the vehicle.
Did you look at her when this was happening?
Yes, we were actually stopped at a stop sign when I heard, and it was not just seeing her double over, it literally sounded like you could hear her breath literally being knocked out of her while she doubled over. And I was watching her because I actually turned to her and I had said, "Are you okay?" I'm like, something's not right. And I was watching her where she was going from bright red to blue. And it was just a constant color changing and then we started driving again.
So what happened after that?
So I basically told him, like, look, guys, you guys can go into the class. I don't think I can do it tonight. But by the time we actually got to the college, my sister just decided, hey, I'm going to just go let the teacher know we're not going to make it tonight because I was just feeling really ill. And so we decided to go home. By the time we got there, I was stumbling. I couldn't walk very well. Both Cody and Autumn both helped me into the house and took me down to my bedroom and lay down. I remember being in my room for I don't know, I would say at least 5 minutes or so. having a conversation and still feeling very, very ill. And this is kind of where my memory goes fuzzy and stuff, because I have a lot of black moments of that night where
Makes
I just
sense.
I just don't remember. And so I'll tell you, the next thing I came to was my sister Autumn, my brother, and my dad standing over me, and my dad saying, maybe it's a brain tumor. And I was like, what?
It's not a tumor.
and I was like, what are you talking about? And it was like I was just coming awake again and not understanding what is going on, why they're standing in my bedroom in the first place or over the top of me.
So Autumn, did Autumn witness this? Did you witness that?
Yeah.
Autumn?
Yes, actually, I was with her literally through the entire thing from start to finish.
So what happened?
Where she starts getting a little fuzzy, we actually got to the house, and I had Cody go in the house first, and my brother came out, which was a little odd because he normally wasn't home, but he came out because he's like, you're supposed to be at school, what's going on? And I'm like, I'm going to need your help. So we went over to it, and I just remember her looking at me saying, Autumn, I can't feel my legs. And at that point, my brother actually picked her up, Princess Carrie, and he actually carried her into her bedroom. And during this time, she was very, very in and out of it. And you could tell she was kind of in and out of it.
Did she look like pale or anything? Did she look like just out in space?
Oh, a little bit of both, but she kept doing this color changing thing. Literally, she would go and she felt like she was just burning up with 104 fever. And then 3 seconds, she felt like she was just pulled from an icy lake. And it would literally just be within seconds of each other, just a constant. And if you looked at her skin, you could see literally the colors as she was going through this. And, excuse me. Excuse me. So she was, she would be there, but then she would start talking, but it didn't always make sense what she was saying at
Do
the
you
time.
recall what was being said? Or
Well, she would be like, well, why are we home? You know, why aren't we in Spanish? So being the person I am, I would tell her, oh, well, you know, that was just a bad dream and we were failing it. That's why. So, you know, so just to kind of get a laugh out of her and stuff, that's kind of my way of dealing with trauma and stuff, is to get people laughing and stay
Right.
lighthearted.
Yeah.
And so we managed to get her into bed, and my brother actually at this point took Cody home.
Because I was freaking out.
Yeah, he was.
I
Cody
remember.
was-
Well, see, I don't know when at what point I was hearing what was going on, but I physically heard her voice change.
Yes.
Was not.
so
her.
that's what I'm getting to, like the
Yeah.
you said it. Like,
Yeah. So I heard her voice change. It sounded like a freaking dude or a really old lady. I can't really remember what it was or even what it said, but it scared me to. I was like,
jeebies,
nope,
huh?
I'm done.
Yeah, he kind of stood in the doorway by the thing, and by the
And
door,
you
he's
don't
like, I'm
recall any
staying
of
here.
this, Melissa?
I don't recall this part, but I do recall my brother telling me afterwards that I actually bucked up at him in a voice not my own.
Is that what you were talking
Yeah.
about, Cody?
Yeah.
And was basically threatening him. I couldn't tell you word for word what it was, but
Do you recall what she had said?
When she actually bucked up to my brother, I had actually went out to the car to close the door and lock it up. So I missed this part. That was when I had actually came in at that point and asked my brother if he wouldn't mind taking Cody to the back home. At that point, though, we had her in bed, we had her laying there, and for the most part, her eyes would be closed, but she was almost like hyperventilating, breathing very, very, very fast. Actually, kind of reminded me, and I made a comment to my dad about it, about how she reminded me of Sigourney Weaver in the original Ghostbusters.
Huh. Right.
So it was literally just this, you know, mouth breathing, but it was very, very rapid. And my dad was with me, and then my brother joined us as well. And what she ended up started doing, and this actually went on for a good chunk of the night, probably a good maybe 4 or 5 hours, where she would just be laying there unconscious. I mean, you talk to her, she would not respond. There was nothing really there, but all of a sudden her eyes would fly open. and she would just sit straight up. And there was a couple times when she first did it where she would just be staring at the wall in front of her, and my dad would reach out. He would slowly put his hand over her eyes, close her eyelids, and then she just gently let him lay her back down.
And Melissa, you don't recall any of this,
I don't
right?
recall any of it.
Huh.
Yeah, so
Literally hearsay from what they were saying and stuff. I remember them telling me later that I was like rolling my eyes in the back of my head type things. But yeah, definitely sitting up. And I remember at some point my dad telling me that I was kind of glaring at him every time he would put his hand in front of my face, but I don't recall any of it.
Were you, was it like a dream sort of, or did you even have any recollection of any dream at all?
No,
or was it just
absolutely,
blank?
it's black.
Okay,
Like
okay.
when I try to recall and stuff, I get these moments where yes, I was coming into the house. Then of course, laying in bed, my dad mentioning that, and then I somehow ended up in her room, which I don't know how that happened. But I ended up in her room, and I remember laying there feeling like somebody was taking very sharp nails and scratching along the side of my body and in my back. And I thought it was her because she used to like clip her nails into like
claws.
little claws
I had
because she's like a
claws.
cat or whatever. And so I was assuming at first that it was her. And I was pretty upset about it. I'm like, stop touching me. And she's like, I'm not touching you. And I'm like, wait a minute. Her voice sounded pretty far away. She was like against the wall, completely away from me.
I thought I was gonna
like
die that night.
backing up against the wall, clearly afraid to even come near me. I don't know why.
So you literally felt someone scratching on you, and you thought it was Autumn. Autumn, did you see anything physical on her when that happened, or did you even want to go by her?
Actually, the next day is when I saw scratch marks
Oh,
on my
wow.
body.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many?
It was about 3 along my my right side, and then I had short one like it was like a quick like claw mark.
Okay.
The same amount on my shoulder.
So
And my
mind
back.
you guys, they don't have any animals at the location,
Nope.
and they still, then and now.
Yeah.
Were you practicing anything like? Were you doing the Wicca thing at all? I know that your sister's into that. Were you into that at all?
No, actually, Autumn was into it. I had read up a little bit because I wanted something to kind of relate to her on, but other than that, I really didn't give it much thought. This was the incident that got me searching out answers, and definitely answers to make it stop and never happen again. So I learned a lot about shielding and stuff at that point, doing research after the fact. But yeah, it was a pretty scary experience of what she told me later, what happened between me going in my bed and ending up in her bed.
So how did that happen?
Kind of just to kind of what was going on was she, we had actually physically, kind of to cover both parts here, physically, at one point her face stayed beet red. I mean, very, very bright tomato red. However, we had uncovered her feet, and even though this was actually in summer, so I mean it was still pretty warm, and we didn't use the air conditioning. We just opened windows.
Sure.
So you thought maybe she's just
Yeah,
fever or something.
yeah, exactly. So we were trying to work it, going through all the logical reasons, but her feet were blue. They were ice cold. And it kind of went up to about her knees, and then from her knees up was this bright tomato red where she was so warm. But what ended up eventually happening was, in one of the times where she sat up, I had moved, well, she locked eyes with me. And Dad had laid her back down, and I mean, she never caused a fuss, you know, she just went back down. But then what ended up happening is every time, didn't matter where I was in the room, she would open her eyes without any warning and just stare.
So let me stop you real quick. Where were you in your spiritual development at this point?
You're all right.
There, it's like, I know, right?
Here we
I know,
go.
I'm like, I'm waiting for this is going. By this point, boy, I don't even remember what year this was, but 2004,
Is it-
2005, somewhere.
Yeah.
At this point, I had went from being a Roman Catholic. I had just did not feel right to me. Everything was screaming. I was miserable. And I ended up finding Wicca at the time, and eventually evolved into me becoming a
So
pagan.
now was that a transition time for you?
It actually was a big transition time, actually around this time that this had happened.
So that brings up a great question. So do you think because you're new at Wicca, I know you're paganism now, but maybe not knowing really what you were doing at the time, maybe you brought something in possibly?
Well, yes and no. My philosophy was, if I don't know how to do it, I don't do it. So I never did anything, whether it was spell work. I've never conjured a thing in my life, and I have no desire to start now. But it was my fault. And oddly enough, it was my fault doing exactly what I do now and exactly what you two do today.
Actually, shortly after this incident happened, we went to, we found a metaphysical store because I was searching out answers, and there was actually a medium there who came right up to my face. It was kind of no boundaries whatsoever.
That's what they do. Sean does it all the time. It pisses me off.
And
Can't help myself.
and she's like, something happened. And so I was explaining this situation to her, and she goes, well, do you know why? I was like, well, no. And she goes, because you're a beacon. I said, well, what does that mean?
Beacon of light?
Yep.
Beacon of light.
That's exactly
And
it.
she said,
Resonation.
literally, this is what I see happening to you right now. You're standing here, and at the top of your crown is so open that you were shooting off a beacon of light. And anybody that, or any spirit, I guess is what she was referring to at the moment, was that they were going to come towards me. And this wasn't too out of the norm. It's not like I hadn't seen spirits in the past. I have seen them ever since I was about 3 years old. But never to the extent of them trying to like take over.
So
Which is
I
in
get that it was a lesson. One, it was the opportunity to figure out that you were learning about yourself. Because again, nothing happens by chance, right?
Right.
We get these things to happen to understand the good and bad and everything.
Absolutely.
And I think that was very relevant to you in your development. I think you needed.
Oh
that.
yeah, well it scared me because there was a moment where she told me later that I had somehow ended up in the living room and
Yeah.
freaked her out because I was rocking in my mom's rocking recliner chair.
Now, I'm sorry, just to cut you off. Was she passed away at this time, or was she still alive?
Yes, she had passed.
She had
This was
passed.
right after
Okay.
we came back.
Because when I was doing when we were going to meditation groups, I felt your guys' mom in that house. I felt like she stayed there for a long time.
Oh, she stayed.
I know that now I feel like she's passed. She's finally just went to the divine, and then she comes and watches that for
Right,
you guys.
right.
But at that point, when we were doing meditation, I always felt like she was there watching, and she was honorary. She was like this. This like that ain't right. You're not doing this right. Blah blah blah. Like
You
she was
met her.
all up in your business. Like
And-
as soon as you walk in the door, she's like in your face. Like,
Right, and she had been there on multiple times. I just know that this wasn't a situation where she was there, because what Autumn had told me transpired was very demonic in nature, almost. She had explained to me that I had been rocking in this chair, and she's like, "Why are you out of bed?" And apparently I had turned to her in a voice not my own, and kind of smiled up at her, went back with this kind of evil smile, she said. But she said that, "Don't make me bring out the sage." And this is what scared me, that she told me that I had turned around and said, "Do it, and she'll be mine."
Did you
So-
say something like "Do it, biatch"?
No, actually,
Like, from the way that she made it sound, it was like almost like this. I felt like it was a female, was coming up just like taunting her, like, "Go ahead and try that. It's not going to help, and this is what's going to happen, and she's going to be mine. So try it."
So let's bring it back to where you were, where Melissa was looking at you in the room, right?
Yeah.
So from there, what happened?
At one point during this time, everybody in the room knew what it was, but nobody wanted to say it. Oddly enough, it was my brother, who was very, very
Oh, I know.
Yeah, you know him all too well. You know, he's got the gift. He just like,
Right.
nope,
He denies it.
He's like, nope, noping out of here.
He didn't even want to do the meditation group because he was afraid he was going to tap into it.
Exactly, and it was because all three of us had the gifts and everything else. It was just he didn't want to prove. Literally, he did not want me to be right, because it's much funner to pick on your sister than it is to.
Absolutely.
So it makes sense. But he actually turned to us while she was doing this hyperventilating sleep kind of thing, and he goes, "You know, she's possessed, right?" And at this point, I looked at my dad. My dad looked at me, and we're like, "Yes, we're aware of this." But I'm like, we're just gonna have to wait it out, because I had not had any experience at this time on what to do with. So my brother's like, I'm going to bed, so do not wake me up unless she is crawling on the walls and eating spiders, because the moment she does that, I'm going to videotape
So
it.
none of that stuff happened.
No. I mean, the truth was a little scarier. I think.
So when that set in, right? So this is your sister, okay?
Yes.
You're obviously you're protecting over her, and
Yes.
and you've always been that way, even now.
Yeah.
So you're watching her go transpire through all this, and you know, Chad says, "Hey, this is a fucking possession, right?"
Yes.
So what are you feeling? Like, what do you do? You know?
Well, that's
Shit, a
it.
golden egg.
Boy, if I could have, I would have. No. I probably would have pawned that thing real quick and
Right.
taken her away as fast as I could. But no, for me, it was terrifying because, as anybody in the family will ever know, her and I growing up, we could not be literally within 25 feet of each other without wanting to kill each other. But as we got older, it actually took some time away for us to become very close. And so literally she was the most precious thing to me. And this is actually relevant on why this possession happened in the first place. But it was terrifying because I'm like, here it is, you know, I'm Wiccan and I understand this stuff happens. I don't know how to help her. And there's nothing I can do about it because at this point it was like 12 o'clock at night. So there really wasn't a whole lot I could do. So
What
it
a
was
feeling,
terrifying.
right?
Yeah,
How can you go
helplessness.
into something and it's a feeling of helplessness.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, you're not going to call 1-800, you know,
1-800.
Yeah,
Get
when
the demon out.
get the
Yeah,
demon
when it
out
comes
at
like,
12 at midnight, you know?
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's
So-
really scary, right?
We knew that there was going to be nothing that we could do until this. So what ended up happening was it started getting later, and my dad's like, well, my back's hurting, so why don't we just put her to bed, you know, and we'll go from there.
Strap her down.
That's what we should have done, because the next part is where it gets really fun, and what my sister was
Comes
just
the juicy
talking about.
part.
Yeah, really fun.
Yeah.
That was complete sarcasm, folks.
Let's talk about it.
So,
What happened?
my dad went and I laid down. Now, the way that the rooms were, we turned off the light, had her in there. Well, I was standing in my dad's doorway, which is hers was kind of center to my dad's master bedroom and my bedroom as well. And then it was kind of like an L-shaped corner. So I'm standing in my dad's bedroom door, and I am talking to him, and all of a sudden I hear a rustle. And I turn my head around just in time to see my sister, who literally could not walk, go floating very quickly down the hallway. And I'm not kidding when I said she was floating. She was a good 2 foot off the damn floor when she did this. And it was very quick. I mean, I remember it's one of those where even though it happened in a second, my brain just kind of saw it in slow motion. So when I see it, I can see every wave of her hair as she is going down this
So
hallway.
you didn't scream, pull up your little skirt, and run out of the door?
No, according to my dad, he said I went very, very white, which, considering how much Irish is in me, that was pretty amazing. And
Transparent.
in fact, he looked at me and he was like, "What just happened?" And I'm like, "Don't move. And if you hear a scream, get something and come save my ass."
Fine across. So Melissa, you didn't feel any of this.
None of that.
You weren't even aware of it.
I only know what they told me at this point, that whole section of it, until I was back actually in her bed, is completely black. I
Yeah.
don't
Wow.
recall any
That's
of that.
crazy.
So
She missed about a good 4 or 5 hours where there's this huge chunk of what went on that she doesn't remember.
So floating down the hallway, like
That's fucking
that's
freaky.
just not something you learn.
No,
you know,
that's not. I'm like,
Meditation, why not?
I would have
I
liked to. No.
I know. I would have very much happily gone down and flipped through my books, going, "Okay,
Right.
you know, what do I do?"
So what'd you do?
I turned into the world's best SWAT member. I kid you not. I was like plastered up against the walls, turning around corners, flipping on lights, and like crab going down the walls. You know, I'm like,
Trying to
"Quick,
find me."
So
where
did
did she go?
Oh, so you're looking for her.
Yeah, I actually got to a T-junction in our hallways in our house, and I was like, which way do I go? And it was at this point
Out the door.
I know, right? It's like, okay, the car's this way. No, as I was doing this, and I was going through, and I was flipping on all the lights because at this point I didn't want any shadows going on. She was not coming out of the shadows at me, and but I heard my mom's chair squeaking because it was an old lazy boy. So every time you rocked in it, it made squeaking noises. So I knew where she was, and I went in there. I went into our living room. And there she is, calm as can be, sitting in my mom's chair. She was sitting, you know, crisscross applesauce or whatever they call it nowadays, and
So
just
she was
happily
actually
rocking.
sitting up. Her feet weren't on the floor?
No, her feet were not on the floor.
Okay.
And basically all she was doing was using her body. She was rocking on this chair, and she just had this big grin on her face.
How
and
creepy.
Well,
It was creepy because I'm like, my sister doesn't do that normally.
Well, I want to ask because this just came to mind, and maybe I'm like way off base here, but is there a possible chance that you were possessed, but maybe your mother was trying to help with it, and maybe that's why you found her in the chair? Because 2 times, right? Maybe there was some intervention there, possibly.
You know what? I do believe my mom was with me, and she probably was really trying to help. But the fact that she was in the chair, the spirit was mocking us, is what she was doing. And there was she was not demonic at all, but
'Cause I
she
feel
liked.
like mom was intervening.
Yeah,
in
mom
one
was
of
there
those,
with
yeah.
me the entire time. At no point did I panic. No, I'm like, I knew she was there and she was helping.
Again, folks, their mom just passed, right? At that point.
Oh yeah, she had passed
just recently happened,
about a
so-
year in between
Yeah.
there, maybe a little bit
So I
more.
do feel like there was intervention there. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know to the extent, but go ahead, please. That story's great.
Yeah. So anyway, so she's sitting in this lazy boy, and she's rocking, and she's got this grin on her face, and so I'm walking very slowly towards her. Like I said, folks, I literally had just seen my sister 2 foot off the floor, floating very quickly down the thing. I didn't know what was going to happen at this point. Any doubts of it being a possession was blown out of my mind at that point. This is what it was. There was
Sure.
never going to be anything else other than this. And I went up and I was just talking to her like I would normally, you know, hey miss, how you doing? How you feeling? And she just had this big green, and she was in this really irritating sing-a-song kind of voice. Because she'd be like, oh, well, hi, Autumn. I'm perfectly fine. Thank you so much. At which point, it's like, if that doesn't give you the shivers, nothing will.
Right.
Which my sister's not like that, even when she's being sarcastic to
Yeah, she's,
me.
she's a little of an asshole, you know?
Sometimes. It runs in the family, if you've noticed.
You're not going to hear that from me.
He's outnumbered right now. But no, it was very clear something was seriously wrong. And so I got a little closer to the point where I was in front of her, and she was just happily rocking away, staring at me. And I turned around and I said, you know, miss, I think I really should get the sage. And she goes, oh no, you know, Autumn, I'm perfectly fine. I don't know why you would think this. And what I did was I actually leaned forward and I grabbed the arms of the lazy boy. And I stopped the rocking, and she was probably maybe 6 inches away from my face. And I looked her dead in the eye and I said, leave her alone or I'm going to get the sage. At which point she stopped rocking. She stopped moving. Her head was down. She had long hair at the time, so it's kind of curtained a little bit.
How creepy.
I know, right? I'm like, they
That's horror film right here. I'm telling you.
it was. I'm like, I'm going to die tonight. I know it. I'm like, that. Just remember, Autumn, if it goes south, run out the front door.
Yeah,
Don't go up the stairs, even though we didn't have stairs.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, you're good. But so basically, at that point, she actually looked up. But when she looked up at me, she had a very old woman's face. It was very wrinkled. It was not her face, and in a voice that was definitely not hers. It was much deeper, very craggy, and everything else. And she goes, "Do it in the bitch dies," is actually what she told me. Now, that terrified me even worse, because at that point, I was still very inexperienced, and I'm like, do I get the sage and call her bluff and risk my sister, or do I listen?
The answer is yes.
Yes, yes.
If you guys out there don't understand, yes.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. So that's what I should have done. I didn't because I panicked. I mean, at this stage, like I was telling Sean a moment ago, I was already into Wicca for a couple years, or well, about 4 years at this point. And it was not something I had come across. So everything at this point, one thing I did learn was when people become aware of the paranormal, or that they can do things like shielding themselves and all that, they become responsible for their own protection.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So what happened when you?
Well, at this point, my dad had came in. I backed off, and I was just watching her at this point, because she, after that had happened, she kind of went limp and was kind of asleep again. And my dad came in the living room, and he goes, "All right, she's sleeping with you tonight." I'm like, "What the?"
That's awesome. And that's what Kim would do.
Can we just throw her in the garage and lock her in there? Holy cow!
Put her in the car, lock the keys.
I know, it was one of those situations where I'm like, I'm going to die tonight.
Well, what
and my
did Tim
dad's
do?
the murderer.
Yeah. What did Tim do? Did he just take you into your room, or take her into your room?
Yeah, he and I ended up kind of each throwing her arm around each of our shoulders, and we both kind of carried her into my room. The whole time I'm complaining about this, because I'm like, I really don't want to die. But we went ahead and we got her into bed, and we tucked her in, and she was asleep. So I actually went out to kind of just close things up for the night. And all of a sudden I got this chill up my spine. And I turned around, and it just would not go away. So I turned around, and at this point, pretty much all the lights were off. So I turn around, and I see her silhouette in the kitchen, just staring at me through the things. And I'm like, and he wants me to sleep here.
We don't want any midnight snacks at that point, right?
Yeah, that was it. I'm like, great, she's picking out a knife.
So Miss, what were you? So when Autumn told you all this, that this transpired, what was going through your mind?
I was pretty terrified, to be honest. When I was about 19 at the time, so it sure as hell didn't have an old woman's face. But I think that between that and her saying that she was going to like basically take me over, or that I was going to die in some way, shape, or form. Not to mention the fact that apparently I was standing over a knife drawer threatening her at some point. So like that kind of really freaked me out, because like why I'm not psychotic, for one. I'm not trying to like hurt my family in any way, shape, or form. So for somebody being able to take over my body and do that, that was highly terrifying. To think that I wasn't in control of me and something bad could have happened.
So how did you get rid of it? Like,
well, honestly, I honestly don't know how she went away until kind of the next day, because when I woke up the next day, I felt completely normal. Initially, I felt completely normal. Then my dad's like, "Hey, you guys want to go to Barnes and Nobles?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's do that."
Just another day. Let's go get a freaking book.
That's
Yeah.
10. That's 10.
let's
It
face it.
literally was like no big deal, right? So we went to the mall and did that, and I remember feeling, oh shit, I don't feel my legs again. And
She's still with you at this point.
yeah.
Okay.
And she was, and so I told them, I'm like, I can't walk, and they half carried me out. I do recall that, but they took
So you
me
were
to the
in
car.
and out of it then.
I was
Yeah.
in and out of it, but I was aware that I couldn't feel my legs and that they were carrying me to the truck. Like, so I got in there, and they had already told me some of the stuff that had been going on the night before. So I was already like on edge. So I was like, okay, what can I do for this not to happen? And all I can remember thinking is, I need to just tell it to go away, to get not come into me. And so I started maybe because I had a battle of wills, I don't know, but I had no clue what the hell I was doing, and I just knew that I wasn't going to allow it to
So
happen.
let me stop you right there.
Yeah.
So you said that you have no idea what you're doing, but in reality you did because you stood up to something, right?
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
that's essentially what you do in these type of cases
Right.
is you don't show fear.
Right.
You know, Sean and I preach this over and over and over. Is when you go into a location, yeah, it's scary as shit. We saw dolls freaking turn their heads at us, but you don't show the fear because that is exactly what they feed off of.
Well, and
Exactly.
I truly believe that there was some intervention from Mom, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that she came in and really just reminded you of your power. I think your mom was a very strong soul, and she was a very independent and strong energy, and I feel like she got involved what she needed to. Because I do believe
I
there's a
honestly think
lesson.
both her and my dad's mom, because both of them did come around me quite frequently, especially my dad's mom when between the ages of 15 and 17, she was around me all the time, and she had passed away when I was about 12.
Wow.
But that's when I really was becoming okay with spirits and stuff. But regardless of however it happened, it was a battle of wills, whether I was doing it intuitively or what. She was not able to come back in, and by the time we got home, I was feeling okay. I was able to go into the house. I told her, I was like, we got to do something. So we went and found the metaphysical store. I met the lady. We did sage, and one of the things that they told us was we bought a huge bundle because I was like, we're doing this whole damn place.
Burn this
I
place
mean,
down with
We're
sage.
saging me.
We
We're
did.
saging this whole damn house.
I mean,
And
whole
I-
family.
attics open,
Yes. No, the
vacuum
right- the right
cleaners.
way.
Right. I
Right.
had
Damn
a
straight.
crash course in getting this bitch out of here.
Yeah.
And so they told us that sometimes when you get to the end of the home that you'll
Feel
the
lifted.
sage can implode or explode. I didn't know what that would look like. I was like, whatever, let's just burn this bitch. So we got home. We opened up everything, cupboards, drawers. We had
Toilet tanks,
Yeah.
everything.
was open. We saged the hell out of that thing.
We
And-
strongly advise if you guys are going to do your own saging, and again, these guys knew what they were doing because they read up on it. You do your research, guys,
Absolutely.
because if you don't do it properly, you'll create more
I
havoc.
tell you
Yeah.
what, if you just go to the store and you just get an Albany shell and a freaking crow feather, you're kind of doing it wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so get some advice. And again, I didn't mean to interrupt
No.
you, but I think this is a relevant thing to
Yes,
say.
absolutely.
Is that just don't think that you know what you got going on. You get advice, reach out to
Absolutely.
people. Don't just do it willy nilly. It's not a good idea.
The lady actually, when we got the sage, had given us something to say during that time too.
Nice.
And because I like again, I didn't know what I was doing. All I knew is my intent was to get this bitch out of here and any negative entities that could be there. And so we went around the house. We did the whole thing. When we ended up at the front door, which is our ending point, we saged that. We walked out, and when that happened, the entire side of the sage bundle completely exploded out the side.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa, because I had this thing in my hand.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy experience.
Just to put in, this sage bundle was 15 inches and 4 inches in diameter. This thing was huge.
And,
And
we used up the majority of it.
It
in
literally
the house.
burned pretty much almost all of it. And then just as we got there, you actually heard it. It was like, it almost sounded like a jet engine where all of a sudden it just sucked it right in, and the whole side of this bundle literally just
Blew out.
It blew out.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
As we pushed her out. I mean, to kind of go back, we ended up actually doing a couple things together. The lady that had did it, like I said, it was my fault. And kind of going, I want to kind of get this in here just because of how you guys were just mentioning, don't go out and buy an abalone feather, or an abalone. Abalone is not a feather, and a feather, to do this. And basically what had happened when we were living in Virginia, a coworker of mine had come to me. She goes, I know you're Wiccan. I know you do spirit stuff. I know you've seen them.
You're weird. Right.
You're weird.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and they loved me for it. It was kind of strange. I thought I was going to be ostracized in Virginia. People loved me. It was hilarious. But she goes, something is terrorizing my boys at night. Can you please, please, please come in? And she begged me for about 2 weeks. And I have a big soft heart, not that I'm ever going to ever admit that. And so I went, and all I had was my pendulum, because I was just starting, I was reading, I didn't know what I was doing. It was just, I knew that there was kids here and I wanted to help. And
So this is, you just weren't sure what you were doing.
I did not, and I made sure, I told her, I said, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, if you want me to come in, I will let you know if I feel anything or anything else. Well, she got in, the first thing that she had mentioned to me was, we had our Catholic priest in here, and she'd had a past life Native American. So her entire house had nothing but Native American stuff, because that's what was closest to her heart. This guy walked in and he goes, well, it's all this pagan stuff. You have to get rid of it,
Yeah,
burn
that's
it.
nonsense, but
Yeah, and I told her that too. I'm like, how long have you guys had this? And she goes, well, I've had most of this my whole life. And I said, when did you start having problems? A couple months ago. Well, it can't probably be that then.
do you think that it followed you home and you brought it to the house?
That's
That's
exactly what it was. I didn't see her. Now, you guys know what a pendulum is.
Yeah, absolutely. I use them all the time.
I know, right? Aren't
Yeah,
they fantastic?
they're great.
Well, mine, I managed to find a vortex, and I managed to shut that down in this house. I went into this room with this old brass bed, and all of a sudden it felt
Now I want to reiterate. You said brass bed, correct?
brass bed.
Conductor.
So
conductor.
yeah, so like Sean just said, it's a conductor, which is a field day for energies or spirits.
Yeah. My
and
pendulum.
depending on what was in the bed.
Right.
Yeah, pendulum, brass.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So I didn't know this at this time.
So it transferred.
It transferred. Well, she saw me and she left the bed and followed me. Well, I knew shielding. Shielding is something I'm very good at, and I kept on it. So
Yeah,
she ended up
shielding's
following
good.
me. Yeah, she followed me, but she couldn't get to me. So she went after the
The
thing
next-
I
Right.
cared about the most.
So going back to paranormal
Yes.
and things like to follow you home, and if it can attach, it looks for the most vulnerable.
Yep.
And Misty, you were going through a lot of struggles at that time.
Well, yeah, of course, because my mom had just passed away not too
Oh.
long before, like literally a year. I still struggle with it today. It's been 15.
Yeah.
So,
It's a perfect.
yeah,
storm.
perfect
Yeah.
time. I really was just going through a hard time in general. Still with all of that, and like she said, she and I were very close at this time. So I think because one, I didn't know anything of this, and I just think that it just latched onto me because I was available. I had this beacon.
Well, let me ask
she
you.
was able to connect.
At the end, it brought the family together, right? Closer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unity of the. So again, bad things happen, good things come out of it, and I think that there's always that lesson, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely, but even more so than that, I became knowledgeable about all of this myself. I've done probably at least 100 house clearings since then, shutting down portals myself. I've learned enough about the paranormal to go out and do all this stuff as well, because I want to make sure that I'm able to help others.
So it kind of lit a fire in your ass. Essentially.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
Both of us.
It really lit that under me and was like, I'm gonna I know this stuff happens, and I'm gonna do everything in my power to help it out.
Yeah.
And help others. And so I took the situation and made it into a positive one. And yeah.
Fantastic.
That's a life lesson.
Yeah, it
right?
actually brought us closer. And for the longest time, we worked together so that we could build our strengths up and be able to help.
So that's the beauty of it. Like something awful and the beauty out of what happened and the closing of it. Again, I truly believe when ugly things happen. I had my situation that the possession I dealt with, not necessarily a possession at that point, but it was
An
definitely
oppression, for
working.
sure.
It was working towards that. Totally different experience, but again, I got beauty out of the end of it. I learned a lot from it. So
Just before we close, so after that transpired, or even during that was transpiring, was there anything paranormal happening that you thought maybe this could be happening because of that incident, or?
Well, like I said, I've seen spirits pretty much all my life.
Okay.
This house itself was always kind of, like I said to you guys earlier, it's kind of like a train station. We had spirits coming in and out of there, but nothing malevolent, type of thing.
Besides the possession.
Besides,
that's not violent.
but that came after. I mean,
Right.
we had been living in that home for probably a good 4 months before this happened, and things in and out of it. But this was the first thing that had come that was negative. We had a couple after that, but yeah, that was
Yes.
the most scary. of
Well, they
it.
were irritating
So-
more than
Okay,
know,
so when people
trouble.
go through this type of stuff, they get curious, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're like, okay, what the hell was that? Like you were saying, you boned up on, your spirituality and you kind of learned what to do. Did you at any point go searching for this entity again?
No.
Okay.
We
No,
kicked
no.
her ass out.
Good.
Not at
Kept her
all.
there.
Good.
It's a good call. That's
Yeah.
a good point made, right?
I did not want to deal. Honestly, I didn't want to deal with anything negative, but at the same time, I now had a understanding of what went on, and had been researching enough to help me make sure it didn't happen again. So no, I didn't go looking for it again. We've had things follow us in the after that.
Sure.
But we were able to handle it and
Good.
get it out of the home. And
Lesson learned, right?
lesson
Yeah.
learned, and yeah.
One thing I do want to say real quick before we close is we had mentioned we found a lady which helped us do what we had to do to give this lady the boot. Now, she was not our first one. We contacted multiple people. And the thing that irritated me most and frustrated me was the answer I got from 3 of them was, oh, well, you're Wiccan. You evidently worship the devil. It's your own damn fault.
That's just...
And they refused. And this is, are you ready for this? These were actual paranormal groups from right here in the high desert that were telling me
Wow.
to do it my damn
So
self.
guys, don't waste your time. Go to
Yeah.
the new reality.
Evidently, I was like, see, we helped
So
raise
again,
these.
Well, the thing is,
No.
we encompass all belief systems. We don't knock it. It's
Yeah.
not. It's very important to let people be who they are.
And to
I believe
understand that.
honestly that whatever you believe gives you the strength to help get this whatever it is
100%.
Out
Yeah.
of there.
And we don't care
and it
how
doesn't
you do.
matter. It's if you believe in it strongly enough, it is going to
Right.
overpower this.
It's all in your
Yeah.
intention, right?
Absolutely. Intention all the way.
Well, hey, we appreciate you guys coming on, Melissa. That's probably one of a really traumatic thing that happened in your life. So we appreciate you sharing. Autumn, thank you for putting your input as well, and kind of not running away, which I probably would have done.
Pretty sure you did.
If I had my little skirt, I would have ran off.
Yeah. So, hey,
Not really.
as always, guys, it's the New Reality here. Give us a like, give us a share. Go ahead and follow us on our Instagram. It's _new_reality11. Go ahead and go to our Twitter. It's The New Reality with 2 Y's. And go on our Facebook. It's The New Reality.
See y'all later.
Thanks.
Bye. Fantastic.